least it's not pretending to be ideological. You know what I mean?
Dude, my Roman Empire is the like it only takes 27 seconds to make a meme coin video. That thing's insane. Yeah, and there's so many ways to like secretly shill. I saw this TikTok girl I follow, who just does like food reviews in Melbourne. It's like, oh, what places are good? She just like got canceled because all of the places were paid. So like someone found out. Like every single place was like a paid ad. So like there's so many places to shill that you don't recognize are full shilling that are secretly like, oh, that guy owns a shit ton of that thing. Even in the Arbitrum like spaces talk today, like when people are like, saying I want to do this because they were saying like so many people were saying like, well, I own a lot of Arbitrum, so my bags are at stake, which is like more fair in that regard, obviously, but it's still crazy. Like there's ways
Dude,
to directly influence.
dude, it's sort of living in a utopian society, which is literally impossible. Like, people, like, there's no, like, there's no situation where, like, there's not some secret financial incentive. Maybe not even secret, but there's not some, like, underlying financial incentive. Like, unfortunately, maybe not unfortunately, that's just the way the world works. And that's, like, a shitty thing to say, but it's kind of been the underlying premise of this entire podcast of, like, or the entire industry. It's like, well, what makes this different? I mean, the tools are better. It creates a more equitable system, a more transparent system in theory. So I think if we move past, like, I think like Bankless being more open about the fact that they're just receiving these tokens is kind of a signal that like maybe we're maturing in the sense that like we're not being naive to the fact that a lot of this, if not all of it, is driven by financial incentives. That doesn't mean it has to be a casino. The industry has to be a casino forever, but um like that's literally being a like a human, unfortunately, or a human that lives in a world where money is the driving factor, and I don't see that changing in our lifetime. So I think the sooner we
Yeah.
can accept that. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I think that's crypto is how a lot of people kind of learn that. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
because like people come up into like how the world works kind of, but in this like weird digital playground.
yeah. It's almost better that way though, instead of like the alternative like 30 years ago where you college straight to a corporation and you don't really realize it until you're 30 or 35, and it's maybe a little bit too late to like feel empowered. Not that it's too late, but like you maybe feel like you wasted 15 years, or now you're stuck in a career path because you have family and kids and are not financially well off. I think I'll look back, and me and you see issue because we kind of grew up in it, and be like, yeah, it was fucking crazy, but we learned so much, and even just a span of like 1 or 2 months. Um, yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see like in the post-mortems 10 to 15 years from now how being chronically online and raising an entire generation in the digital world affects business and the psyche and your relationship with money and culture and people and secret financial incentives. But yeah, I mean, we kind of going off the whole like a theory, not that Ethereum is losing its like power, but I think a lot of people, Frisian, you included, we've talked about this in past episodes, like becoming a multi-chain bro, like TM. Um, and then with Tally, like we've been announcing chain support like crazy. Like I think we just like 6 new chains went live on Tally just yesterday or 2 days ago. It's a multi-chain world out there. I want to hear either of your thoughts on what's the status in terms of like how it relates to DAOs. Like when I think about, I look at Tally and there's 15, 16 chains to choose from. Maybe from like from the chain itself's perspective and also from a user perspective, like what is the key to getting DAOs on those chains? Or like when I'm looking to start a DAO, why would I choose one of those chains over the other? Because right now, to me, in my head, if I'm gonna go launch a new project or DAO, I'm gonna probably choose Polygon, just because that has the most thriving DAO ecosystem. But is that because it's inherently better than the other chains, or is it just because they were early movers and enabled, DAOs to be built early on?
I think the most important differentiator at this stage is really go to market. I think, well, I'll take a step back. It does depend somewhat on the kind of project you are. And I think it's really important to think about the long-term viability of the tech. So that's probably step one, is just like, do I think that this chain is going to be here? And is it sufficiently decentralized? Is it going to be sufficiently decentralized, to exist over the long term? But then beyond that, it's really like, am I going to be able to, like, to what extent is launching on this chain going to help me, drive growth of my product? And that's everything from like the existing ecosystem, right? Like, are there already users, or are there going to be users on the chain that overlap with the users that you want? And then also, like, is it a supportive ecosystem in terms of like helping you get grants or get in front of the right people? So I think that's like what a lot of builders are thinking about. I think for Tally, like, where we want to get is to kind of like abstract the chain part entirely, right? So if you're an app like Tally, where it's just like, yeah, basically a consumer app or like a business app for doing some kind of Web3 thing. In the case of Tally, it's governance. You want to just be able to come to Tally and just, it doesn't matter, right, what chain you're on. You're just like, I want to do a governance thing in this DAO. You just go there and do it, right? But so it also depends on like what kind of application you are, I guess. So if you're trying to be like a consumer app, I think you want to abstract the chain completely. And then I think if you are an app where sort of like liquidity matters, and it's important, there's like a relevant aspect of kind of like who you're on the chain with, then it's really about figuring out what it means for your go-to-market strategy.
Yeah, I also remember when like I first started working like full time in the space, and everyone was Polygon. Like that is just so what I remember. But now it seems like I have a lot more day-to-day interaction, or at least like on Twitter, I hear about more like Arbitrum and Optimism, and even like Base and some of the more random like hype ones that could turn out to be legit or could turn out not to be. Um, but yeah, I wonder also like what's the major argument between using like running your DAO on Ethereum instead of an L2? The relationship with the foundations to the DAOs is becoming so important. Even what was in the newsletter last week when we talked about grants and like centralized entities giving out grants, some are less on that scale, some are more. And I was thinking if I were to start a DAO right now or start a project, I would literally just look who's giving a grant and how easily I can get that grant. I have a few friends who operate on like the XRPL because Ripple's giving out so many grants. So they're like, yeah, we started, we didn't really know where to go. Like we were on like thinking about some random ones, like less popular at least right now, like Mantle. But now we've decided like that's where the money is. We're just gonna go where the money is, and that's gonna take us the best, and we'll deal with the like multi-chain stuff later on, which makes a lot of sense to me. The DAOs that have stuck with like Ethereum from the get-go are now also giving out their own their own grants, which is interesting. I wonder how like yeah, Polygon's potentially restarting their grants program. Everybody's got a grants program now. It's just becoming so important. Even in our chats with the Polygon ZK EVM people, we're saying like, how can we get this in front of builders? And they're like, oh, we have all of these resources where we directly connect with builders, which just I don't think was that much of a thing years ago, right? Like you're not relying on or expecting or probably not even hoping for that much support from the foundations, or like the more centralized entities. I guess, do you feel like the peer-to-peer aspect has decreased as like DAOs become more reliant on their foundations for grants. Like you're not partnering with, if I'm running on Polygon, I'm not partnering with another Polygon project, but I'm partnering with the Polygon grants giver.
Yeah, I think that kind of ties into kind of the challenge and opportunity of DAOs broadly. We've talked a little bit recently about this idea of the tyranny of structurelessness that Rika from Content Guild wrote about last month. Like, if you have a resource like a protocol, right, like Uniswap, we're looking at their DAO page right now, and there's a protocol and also like a treasury of Uni tokens, um, and you try to think about how to like coordinate around that in a decentralized way, at the end of the day, there's just going to be like new types of kind of groups or power structures that emerge, right? It doesn't really work to coordinate where there's like 10,000 individuals, right? And there's no sort of like mechanism for like aggregating the interests of various of those individuals, right? And that's why you see, in the IRL non-crypto world, things like governments and corporations and nonprofits start to emerge, or have emerged. So I think like when you think about the question of grants, right? Like at the end of the day, it's pretty hard to coordinate like peer to peer, like who should be giving each other funding, right? Right. And so you start to introduce things like foundations or protocols like Gitcoin for people to like allocate funding to each other. Or even something like Tally and Governor, right, is kind of like, if you think about it, like an on-chain proposal is a way of kind of like aggregating, creating like a power structure around the protocol or the resources that it's governing. So at the end of the day, I think of foundations as just like one of the power structures that emerge inevitably within a DAO.
Yeah, it's arguably the one that is the obvious first one. Just makes sense to do that, and then like as the ecosystem matures and it has more players, hopefully, other sources of peer-to-peer sharing and businesses will kind of emerge, which is just like at least to the point of like there's so much, like we talked about last week, like shitting on foundations just doesn't really make sense. At least when there's no, if you're shitting on a foundation and you're not providing alternatives to funding the foundations to invigorate the ecosystem, then it doesn't really make sense. So yeah. All right, I don't know if you guys saw, but Zora launched a new feature yesterday, which to me is like I think will be one of the more important primitives that exists in the coming year in terms of onboarding people. Have you guys seen it? Is this going to be a live reveal?
I just saw the fire meme on Twitter of like, conveying the message, no ETH required, no onboarding required, just mint, bruh.
So what happens is, I'll pull up the tweet as I talk about it, but if you are trying to, like, for me, this is what I'm literally gonna do this with some of my artist friends. I'll be like, yo, if you want to put your art on chain, but you don't have any, like, you don't have a wallet, you don't have a crypto, you don't have an account, whatever, you don't have ETH, just submit it onto Zora, and then it places the onus on the responsibility, not the responsibility, but the person who mints it first is essentially paying the mint fee for that. And then you get a reward as the first minter, part of the creator rewards down the line. I think you can opt out of it as well. But like you literally, like, I'll have a friend who's an artist be like, hey, post this on Zora, I'll mint it. You'll automatically get ETH sent to your wallet, and now you've basically been onboarded into the system, which is fucking sweet and genius. And also, like, it can't happen unless it's something as adopted as Zora, but I think it's pretty sweet, and I'm excited to see what happens with it in the coming months and years. I think it's a very important primitive.
That's so cool. Yeah, it's like one of those things that you're like, I can't believe that this doesn't already exist.
Yeah, I mean, Zora, in my opinion, like, we talk about friend tech a lot, but I feel like Zora is very consciously riding the line between crypto and the normie world and trying to combine it like as seamlessly as possible, which is I think the way we hit the onboard the next billion users meme. I think there'll always be the hard protocol DAOs, the same way in the not the real world, but like the meat space world, there are the hard industry, sweaty startup world, like with energy and infrastructure and whatnot. But not to like, I feel like consumer crypto is so like a not a thing to say because it's just been beaten to the ground the past couple weeks. But like like economies can't flourish without consumers, and I think Zora is going a long way in bringing consumers into crypto and giving new like this. I see this as a way to like seed a community for a DAO outside of like people that are already in crypto. Because right now, like in the DAO space, in my experience, it's like, okay, we're trying to attract people that are already onboarded into the system to join this DAO. How do we attract people that aren't in the crypto ecosystem to join the DAO, to join the project, to join Tally, to join these apps? And I think this is a very positive step in the right direction. People thinking about, I feel like it's a shift in the way creators are thinking about crypto, which I think is very important because I think the current, Ethereum and crypto meme is pretty low and negative in terms of like the normie world. So interesting to see.
Yeah, I remember back in the day when it was like, fuck UX, like we only care about the technicals, like doesn't matter as long as the code's good type of stuff. But even like trying to get my mom, not even like to get her to do something, but even sitting right next to her and being like, okay, now let's do this. Now let's do this is a whole like exercise. So that'll be exciting. I wonder where else like it can be applied. This like maybe next it'll be like some kind of, I don't know. That's like NFTs are like a transactional thing. I guess a lot of stuff is.
Yeah, but I feel like if
I don't
you,
know. See Base doing something like this for like wallet people.
yeah, I feel like it's kind of moving away from the transaction, where it's minimizing the like onus of like it is a transaction. It is more of like you are creating something, you're putting it into this ecosystem, and people are supporting it. There's very little crypto messaging here. Or like if I'm going to pitch this to a friend, there's almost zero requirement for me to explain that it is crypto, right? It is a primitive that underneath is built on crypto rails, but it's not a crypto product in my opinion, which is I think very important to attract the normies. The same thing with like DAO infrastructure. How do we get, and this goes back to like the app thesis version has been talking about the last couple of weeks, is like it's the killer app, it's not the chain. The chain is powering the killer app, but the killer app is what, like the same way like all the apps built on top of like Web2 internet, right? Like no one really thinks about it as using the internet anymore. You just think about using Amazon, or you think about, ordering on an e-com brand. That's obviously taken 20 years to get to, but that's kind of like the seeds that are being planted right now.
Yeah, I think it's important to consider when people find out about the crypto part, right? I think this is part of the beauty of account abstraction is the way crypto's worked in the past. If you want to do something on chain, you first have to figure out how crypto works. Then you do the thing you want to do, like swap the token, mint the NFT, vote in the DAO. I think a better onboarding path is like, you want to share your art with friends and potentially make money on it. So you like press some buttons on Zora and then you're on your way. And then it's like in this example, right? Now someone actually wants to like mint it or buy it, right? That's the point at which you're starting to understand, okay, this is going on chain, like there's this smart contract that allocates revenue, blah, 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 right? So I think shifting the point at which people start to try to have to wrap their heads around the crypto part backwards and closer to the point that like the value is actually being delivered is super important.
Well, let's run through some tally news for this week. We talked a lot about Arbitrum Security Council. Round 2 kicks off tomorrow. If you're listening to this, it's already kicked off on October 6th. We'll have some content out around that. Remember, CHG is running. Shout out to CHG. Any updates on like what's happening with that process? I know you said there was a call today where everybody gave their pitch to vote for them for the Security Council. There's like 24 candidates that are in round 2 and 6 get elected. So CHG, anything that people should know about or look forward to over the coming weeks?
Yeah, I think I'll just emphasize like you gotta vote in the first 7 days or the votes decay quickly. Which I feel like, I mean, obviously we'll emphasize it when round 2 goes live and stuff, but I feel like it's like a wise nobody talking about this moment, especially how the last round went when so many of the votes were put in, at the day before. So yeah, that's a good thing to know. But yeah, so far so good. The compliance check was not super strenuous. I wonder, they haven't said, right, how many people completed the compliance check. I assume it will be all, but to be fair, there were a lot of it was a lot of simple, but a lot of things. So I wonder, I was also searching my email, did I miss any of this stuff? So I wonder if anyone will have forgotten one random thing, not made it. But yeah, all the 24 candidates are super qualified. In the spaces this morning, it was refreshing that everybody has a really good background. I think the thing that I'm hoping for the most out of the election is that the candidates have diverse backgrounds, actually. A lot of people, well, obviously everyone has a similar background as someone else running, basically. So I'm hoping that the 6 who end up are people from 6 different backgrounds, which should be cool. But yeah, I'm also interested to see what even Frisian, what you said, some of these sort of weird crypto unique things that are also just office politics. Do you vote for people that you're friends with? Do you vote for somebody, it's a complicated thing. So I know everybody has relationships to at least some of the delegates, which is fair and probably how it should be. But it'll be interesting just to see how the votes actually play out and if they'll ever do some kind of more intense rules around how you can campaign, who you can vote for in the future. Should be a good first election. I think it's going really well so far, and they can iterate on it. I mean, it's a really cool example for so many other projects. Even Tally's talked to a few places that are thinking about creating some kind of security council thing. I've been involved with a few of those things, but this one is super official, which should be exciting.
Let's go. Round 2. Yeah, I have to figure out who I'm going to vote for. It's really stressful.
I know.
Yeah.
Our boil in the house. There's so many people. And it's so hard to even some of the people, they were calling each other different names today on the call, confusing where people worked or what experience they actually had. So yeah, I can't imagine as a delegate. I was saying I think it would be, if you had all the time in the world, to think what 6 people would work together. Because ideally, right, you'd create a team that's different time zones, different expertises, different regulatory concerns, different backgrounds. But it's not super feasible to do when it's at this scale, So it'll be interesting who ends up in there, because even if it's the 6 most qualified people, it might not be the 6 that you would ideally want dealing with an emergency because of all these random external factors,
Again, I mentioned earlier we had a ton of chains go live on Tally. Go check those out, see if you want to build. Tally newsletter went out this week. It goes out early in the week, every week, from CHG herself. So we'll link it in the show notes as well. Go check that out. Round 2 for the Arbitrum election starts tomorrow or today. If you're listening to this, remember 7 days to vote before those voting power starts to decay. So make sure if you have ARB tokens, go check out the ARB Security Council election interface on tally.xyz/Arbitrum. Otherwise, that's it. This has been DAO Talk episode 58. We will see you next week for episode 59. Peace.
Peace.